Chapter 21-21. Burning Cove, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Fuck. I'm going to hurl. Colin began to heave, kneeling on the ground after entering the red portal. Man. That never gets easier. Bryn said with a wry smile, his face pale as he began to survey the area. I feel bad. Carry me. Marie complained as she leaned against the two men, her staff almost falling as her robes were down to her shoulders. Raven stood in silence, he paid no attention to these people, his eyes watching the surroundings, feeling a sense of awe at how different this place was from the previous dungeon. It's amazing. Raven stood at the entrance of the burning cove, taking in the fiery underground dungeon before him. The walls were made of blackened rock, and molten lava flowed through narrow channels carved into the stone. The heat was almost unbearable, and he could feel sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. Two passageways led into the burning cove, each more treacherous than the last. The first was narrow and winding, and Raven could see the flicker of flames illuminating the walls. The heat emanating from the passageway was intense, and he knew it would be difficult to navigate. The second passageway was wider and more open, with a bridge suspended over a pool of molten lava. Raven could see the heat rising from the lava, causing the air to shimmer and blur. Despite the danger, he knew this passageway might be the faster route to his destination. Raven stood at the entrance, considering his options, when the party finally recovered and called out to him. Hey! Raven! Are you fine after traveling through the portal? Bryn asked with a faint smile, his face was disgusting and fake for Raven to look at, even the damn goblins that tried to kill him were better. My mother taught me to endure them better, so it became a habit. He lied, not wanting to tell anything about his secrets. I see. Are we ready to get going? Which path should we take? That one looks a bit harsh. Can your shoulder even get through those tight walls? Marie's ass too. Fuck you, my ass isn't big. Marie protested as they prepared their weapons. Dual swords, a longbow, daggers, and a witch. Whoosh. Raven swung his axe, the pressure causing a small gust of wind pushing the embers of flame away from his body, sweltering with heat, a little thankful he was wearing lighter clothes. He removed the suit jacket and pulled off his shirt, his muscular and bulky body now on display as he stepped towards the entrance leading to the long footbridge. Still, no monsters in sight. He knelt and looked around, seeing the lava pool beneath the bridge. The flames seemed to have moments of calm, but Raven knew there must be something else behind the pool, waiting to attack. BDNV, a trap. Raven decided to test the waters and slowly crawled across the bridge. It creaked under his weight, and he felt the heat begin to sear his skin, feeling a dryness in his throat as the other three followed him. Their weight caused the bridge to sway, sink and almost touch the lava below. Marie was the first to move forward, her feet sinking as she stepped onto the bridge. She quickly took another and then braced herself, trying to ignore the searing pain as she moved forward. Bryn was next to follow, moving quicker than he thought possible, taking a few steps before stumbling and falling forwards, his arms sprawled out and his legs hitting the ground. His sword clanged against the stone floor, echoing throughout the tunnel. Colin was third to step forward, using both hands to keep himself steady as he inched closer to the end. One hand rested on the wall, while the other held his longbow, which was knocked aside as he fell. Shit! Raven muttered, the moment the three stepped onto the bridge. Not only did it start swaying, there was a strange guttural cry as monsters with charred gray skin appeared like rats, like a mixture of goblins and dwarves, and started to flood from the walls. However, only a few dozen armed with crude bows and sharp rocks stood on either side of the party about 3 meters above them on the rock walls. One of the goblins threw a large boulder at Raven's head, narrowly missing as he swung his axe at the creature to deflect any arrows, as the mist in his body seemed to empower his reactions and strength in combat. Another goblin screamed and ran towards Marie, its bow raised high, releasing an arrow at her chest. No. Raven shouted, knocking the arrow down with the back of his hand, sending it spinning into the lava pool. Despite not knowing if they were trustworthy, he wouldn't let them be wounded for anything. The pretty woman's face slightly flushed as she was moments from death. Before nodding to Raven, she admired his wonderful almond body as he allowed her to pass along with Bryn, using his large body to deflect and block the arrows. At the same time, Colin fired back, making the grey goblins retreat. The group continued up the passageway until they arrived at the other side, where they found a massive room filled with molten lava and a large pool of water. There was no sign of monsters, just a staircase leading upwards, so they climbed the stairs. They reached the top and found themselves inside the second cave, with a tall ledge that went all the way around, allowing them to reach the ceiling. As they moved further inwards, the walls grew thinner, and the heat lessened until they reached a large cavern with a huge waterfall cascading down from the roof, forming a pool at the bottom. On the other side was a large pool of water, with green plants surrounding the edge, growing out of the volcanic rocks. Crash! A pile of rocks dropped, covering the only exit as the various fauna and plants were torn down, revealing small holes in the wall, just large enough for the grey-skinned monsters to enter. It was a trap. Bryn muttered, they thought it was a lucky path because of the goblins' early retreat. There was no way we could have known. Colin shrugged, examining the hole in the wall. Let's go, Raven said, looking at the waterfall as he considered their options, his axe at the ready as the low hum of the monsters' grunts and the sound of their skittering feet grew louder in his enhanced hearing. Prepare for combat. He shouted before stepping forward. The parties were back against the only safe wall as they listened and waited for the monster to appear. Almost 10 minutes before the first came, a goblin with 4 arms wielding a club that looked like it could split open skulls and ribs, and the other 2 hands holding a dagger in each hand. Looks like this is going to be fun. Colin grinned, pulling back the string of his longbow, a sharp iron arrow with a strange glow on the tip. The sound of his bowstring was the signal for battle on both sides, and rapidly, the goblin hunkered towards them. In contrast, the whistle of his iron arrow, cascading across the boiling cave, twirled through the air like it was dancing on the faint wind, penetrating through the chest of the first goblin, dropping the grey-skinned monster with a thud. Raven wouldn't be outdone, his body filled with a sense of power far beyond normal. He wanted to release to blast these monsters into mush, desiring a class of his own, charging forward like a bull in a red rage. Goblins poured from the north wall, their numbers in the dozen, yet his brutal body tightened with a powerful and vicious cleave. His axe tore through the air. A howling of black metal followed by the shrieks of 5 goblin torsos slamming against the wall, his body standing between the emerging goblins and the entire party, his bronzed muscles bulging and a look of excitement on his face. Come! He growled as he began to swing his axe, dropping several goblins in a single strike, clearing space for Colin and Bryn to unleash their weapons, slicing through the grey-skinned creatures as though they weren't even there. With a roar, Colin unleashed arrows at the advancing goblins, catching 2 in the stomach before they could rush forward, sending them tumbling into the pool of water. That's how you do it. He praised, grinning wide as he saw Raven move to the next goblin, carving its limbs and body easily, turning it into a bloody mess as he used his axe to cut down the remaining goblins before them. Damn, it feels good. Like I am at home. Raven said with a grin. His body didn't feel tired, nor did he feel weak or hungry. His body was focused, and his mind was clear. Is this what it's like to be strong? He wondered, not questioning whether he was strong, but his body felt incredible, more powerful than he had ever imagined. Suddenly, his ears twitched as the wind whistled from behind, 2 arrows shooting towards him. Raven's head tilted narrowly, avoiding one, while the second grazed across his cheek, with a burning pain before both arrows luckily pierced the heads of 2 grey goblins seeming to attack him from behind. This little cunt. Was it on purpose? Raven thought, clenching tightly onto his mother's axe. Forgive me, big guy. You moved in the way. Colin shouted with an insincere voice. Chapter 22, Bonus, 22. Burning Cove, free, you are listening at novelfull.audio. After what seemed like hours, the sound of rushing feet and the pounding of the water subsided, leaving the cave silent as the party stopped fighting to catch their breath. I think we're done here, Colin said, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, let's get out of here. We should make camp outside, this place gives me the creeps, Bryn suggested. Not a bad idea, Raven agreed. As agreed, the party collected the scraps of the 42 corpses. Raven only took 4 pairs of ears, teeth and only 10% of the income of credits. Killed 42 grey goblins, 25 credits each, Raven gained 10% yield. 105 credits added to your account. Total 175 credits. A sudden flash of light filled all 3 of the people. Raven watched as they all seemed to have leveled up. He could sense the danger of Colin, and Bryn had increased quite a lot, while Marie was an anomaly from the very start to end of combat. She merely used her staff as a club, not casting a single spell. Is it to save her spells? Or is she a low mana type that only nukes the boss? He couldn't know from standing here and just shook his head as the group began to examine the cave, looking for an exit for almost 30 minutes. I found a door, hee. Marie shouted as the other 2 men rushed towards her, praising her with delighted faces. You found one? Colin asked, sounding excited. Yes, right over here. Marie pointed, leading them to a side cave that led to a strange spiral-shaped tunnel. This will take us to the boss room, hopefully. Alright, let's go. Raven laughed. They cautiously entered the spiral tunnel, noticing it changed as they went deeper underground until they arrived at a large circular room with a giant statue of a dragon made of stone before them. A purple crystal hung off the ceiling, pulsating with a strange energy, and a soft blue light illuminated the room. Okay, so what do we do? Colin asked, looking around the room curiously. I suppose we wait for the boss to appear. Raven nodded, watching as a gout of fire shot from the statue's mouth, crashing into the crystal at the ceiling, causing it to shatter and fall to the ground, creating a loud clatter. Within seconds, the room was bathed in an eerie purple light before the statue was revealed as a silver serpent with an enormous crown atop its head and a golden tail with a sharp tip. It was glowing with a bright blue aura. Take care of it, big guy. Colin yelled with a smile, raising his bow. Well, looks like we got ourselves a fight. Raven grunted and readied his axe, facing the snake with caution. You must die. The serpent roared before opening its maw and exhaling a torrent of flame that sent the party diving to the ground. Oh, fuck. Colin cursed, rolling out the way as the flames scorched the floor directly before him. Raven stood his ground and blocked the incoming onslaught with his axe, his blood flowing like water as the fire burned against his flesh, yet he didn't scream nor flinch. Instead, he pushed harder to meet the beast in the middle, aiming a blow with his axe. His eyes were covered by fire as he dodged the first few attacks, but it proved useless. The monster's scales were too hard for his axe to penetrate easily. He tried to dodge the next attack, but the dragon was faster than expected, striking him with its tail. His body slammed against the ground, barely avoiding another strike. We need to find its weak spot. Raven called out, as the party members were rather distant from him, their eyes looking at him, then at the snake for a moment. If anyone has a weak spot, it would be you, right? Colin said, with a flat voice, his bow fully drawn and aimed towards Raven as the other 2 began to escape down another passage. This was the main room as even the dungeon's exit portal and chest was here. Raven couldn't understand why they would abandon him now. They had yet to defeat the dragon. Raven was ejected from the party. He recovered quickly and swung his axe, sending a shower of sparks as it hit the first arrow, only for an arrow with a green hue to pierce Raven's thigh as Colin dashed away. Dumb demi-human trash. The boss will reset after killing all in the cavern, then it will reset. Colin laughed as Raven struggled to stand back up, blood dripping from his leg. He noticed the serpent was still moving, preparing itself to fire another attack. Well, that's just fucking great. He growled, dodging the next attack as he charged the creature, using his axe to deflect the projectiles away, only for a new barrage to rain down upon him, sending him to the ground. Colin's figure was now gone, Raven's eyes were bloodshot, and his muscles bulged, the black axe smashing through the arrows around him as the hissing serpent irritated him right at this second. Raven had been a calm man, endured overtime without pay, treated like garbage because of his race and the prejudice. He expected to have some issues, but not this far. If he died, that was it. Everything was over. The black shadows began to swarm his body and axe, the purple mist mixing and weaving together with the shadow from his shadow strike, as his eyes glowed brightly, looking at the tall silver serpent staring at him with narrow eyes, almost mocking him. You think a snake can be as haughty as a dragon? Raven narrowed his eyes and replied with a taunt, I've always enjoyed eating snake meat, let's take some home for Lilith as a nice snack. The beast's skin glowed with a purple aura before it suddenly changed to a deep red, its scales becoming wet with blood as it reared up high into the air and opened its maw, roaring a deafening roar that echoed throughout the chamber. Oh! Can you understand me? Good, you filthy rat. The snake hissed and spat a stream of acid towards Raven. He rolled away, evading the attack as the acidic liquid splashed against the floor and left a burning slime across the ground. Raven glared at the reptile, so, will you keep trying to kill me? Orc versus serpent, my second real fight, huh? Let's go. I'll make sure to grind you up well. The snake roared, spitting another torrent of acid at Raven, who rolled away as he heard the sound of his axe cutting through the air. I am going to enjoy this. Raven smiled, his body glimmering with a black aura as he channeled power into his axe, swinging it as fast as possible, splitting the serpent's tail clean in half, causing it to wail and howl. Don't be a fool. Only losers spam the same attacks. Ha ha ha. His foot smashing into the hard scales of the snake's belly, he could feel a slight pain in his toes, but the serpent's body rolled along the ground as flames billowed from the split tail, cauterizing the wounds. Let's dance, Eastern Dragon. Raven roared and grabbed the shaft of his axe, slamming it into the serpent's neck, sending it flying backwards as he stood in the center of the room. Suddenly, his leg became numb, the strange black and green fluid spewing from the wound as his dash faltered, the sharp snake's tail thrusting through his abdomen, tearing his guts open. Raven screamed as the serpent whipped its tail, sending him rolling along the floor, flames and rocks tearing and burning his flesh, climbing to his knees as the serpent raised its belly, ignoring the broken scales and charred flesh, looking at the bleeding orc with a sneer in its victorious eyes. He used the axe's handle to stabilize himself before gritting his teeth. Fuck poison users. Fuck snakes. His eyes were cloudy, his senses dulling as his vision began to blur. He could hear the sounds of battle around him, but nothing made sense anymore. Why did you come here, little rat? Why? The serpent said with a hiss, its voice echoing throughout the chamber. Raven coughed, blood trickling from his mouth as he gazed at the serpent with a weak smile before saying, I came here to eat snake meat. Ha! His lips drew back in a snarl as he let the axe fly, impaling it through the serpent's heart, causing it to recoil and fall to the ground, twitching as it began to bleed heavily, while Raven made his way towards the snake, wanting to end the bastard's life. With a grunt, Raven slammed his fist onto the serpent's face, crushing its skull and shattering its nose, causing it to screech and roll away. Raven fell to the ground, his vision growing darker and dimmer as his head pounded with pain, yet he forced himself to stand up, grabbing the serpent's tail and pulling it towards him. How about you give me some of that snake meat? Bang! His fist once again slammed against the monster's face, crushing its bones and flesh as a fleshy purple mane began to bubble and ooze from the fist wound, the serpent's head slamming against the wall and cracking apart as Raven threw the remains of the serpent aside, taking stock of the situation. He looked around and saw no traces of the slut, Colin and Bryn, which meant they were probably hiding somewhere, or waiting for his death in safety, causing Raven to become angry. The anger seemed to be something that originated from his new race, not his former self, but he didn't mind. He should be angry. Killed Silver Serpent boss. Gained 0 EXP, earned 200 credits. Raven gained 100% yield. 200 credits added to your account. Total. 375 credits, shit. It seems I hit it big. Shall I meet Alamia next time and expel my frustration on her? He muttered, shaking his head as he sheathed his axe and took a knee. His breath grew labored, his mind growing clouded as he stumbled, falling against the wall, his vision blurry. Raven's eyes closed, his hand reaching for a dagger buried in his side. He pulled it out and stared at the blade, seeing it was covered with blood. I've never felt this much pain. He whispered, his hands trembling as he grabbed his axe, lifting it and placing it over his shoulder. I'm sorry. I should have listened more seriously. Delia. But it's okay. I will deal with those demi-hunters. Deal with them permanently. Raven mused, his eyes dull as he walked slowly towards their chosen doorway after taking the chest into his item ring. A dark shadow swirling around his body, as the manticore's sharp tail began to grow from his back, swaying like a deadly inflexible spear. Chapter 23-23. Burning Cove, Finn, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven wasn't sure what parts of the Silver Serpent were most important, so he cleaved off its head and removed a few of the most radiant and beautiful scales from its underbelly and back that were undamaged. With slow, steady steps, he began to walk towards the cave entrance where Colin and the others vanished, his heart becoming colder with each step, as the purple and black energy seemed to wrap his heart in a cocoon. The more the energy pulsated and surged, the more his skin began to seem different, like scales at times, like a beast others. They are still running. He thought, listening to them clashing with what seemed to be grey goblins in the distance. He didn't care if they were dead or alive, whether they were his friends or enemies. He wanted to end their miserable existences, to remove the pain and suffering their lives caused countless demi-humans forever. Raven entered the small archway, entering a large room, the walls filled with molten black rocks and magma, while on the opposite edge of the room, Marie was fighting a pair of grey goblins while Colin and Bryn fought the main pack. He pretended to walk with a limp from the arrow that pierced his leg. Thanks to the skill, Manticore Heart, the poison was only temporary, as if the heart and cultivation technique extracted a part of the poison to empower the purple mist inside his body, which couldn't enhance his body, but improved his shadow strike and defenses. Shit. It's the fucking orc. Colin's rough voice sounded as the black-haired male stabbed one of the goblins through its eye, pushing back as he stumbled slightly. Contrary to their previous well-oiled unit, it truly seemed they did lack a tank. Maybe if Raven was a human or elf, they might have extended their racist hands to him in partnership. Ha ha ha, fucking orc. Nostalgic. You fuckers. Raven bellowed, a burst of shadows enveloping his body from below his feet like an aura, his stamina and willpower dropping further as the slutty witch crushed the skull of the second goblin, her first moment of using magic as she pointed her staff's tip towards Raven's body, a strange red glow filling her body, as she began to rapidly speak in what seemed like tongues to Raven, as billowing flames formed a small dance around her, forming 3 orbs of flame above her head. Marie turned around and grinned as she saw Raven, finally. It's a shame such a huge cock cannot be tried out. If only you weren't freak. We were worried you got lost. Ha ha ha. Stop playing, Marie. Colin, let's take this damn demi-human down. Bryn shouted, his dual swords gleaming as he flanked Raven's right side with light steps as a slight wind seemed to flow through his legs and arms. Yeah, let's get this over with. Colin growled, charging towards Raven, his daggers flashing as he stabbed at the orc's torso, only for Raven to dodge the attack and slam his axe into Colin's stomach, sending him stumbling back. Raven wouldn't let them die easily, the sickening crunch of Colin's chest, as the hammer edge of his axe crushed several ribs, but not enough to completely immobilize and drive him into a corner. Damn. My fucking ribs, you filthy pig. Colin grunted, holding his stomach, reaching for his dagger, and stabbing it into his thigh as he stumbled forwards. Raven charged forward and grabbed Colin by his hair, lifting him and slamming him against the wall, where he punched him in the gut, making him cough up blood and vomit as he punched him repeatedly. "Get over yourself. You aren't anything special." He spat, feeling his hands begin to burn with violet energy, his fists glowing with a dark purple aura as he punched Colin's face, his nose breaking and blood gushing from his mouth. Raven could feel his grip on reality slipping as the purple energy around his body increased, his fingers turning black and his nails sharpening as he punched Colin again and again, feeling a burning hatred for these humans, wanting to crush them, devour them as he heard the soft steps of Bryn behind him. He grasped the collar of Colin, whose body was now bloodied and half-crippled, twisting his hips as his arms and abdominal muscles contracted before tossing Colin out towards Bryn with a rapid explosion of speed and power, his body causing a loud boom of air, as Marie took this chance to bombard Raven with her 3 fireballs. Raven dodged the first 2, barely managing to avoid the third as he swung his axe at the bitch, who turned her head, dodging the blow with ease as she sent a blast of wind towards him, which caught him off guard and knocked him back. Raven groaned as he landed on his ass, his vision blurring as he felt the world spin around him, his ears ringing as he clutched at his axe, trying to regain his senses, as he slowly rose to his feet, coughing up blood. "Can't even beat a pathetic mutant like an orc." Marie laughed, her red eyes glowing as she shot another fireball, which Raven dodged, before slamming his axe into the wall, creating a large hole. Then lifting it above his head and smashing it down again, the sound of stone and metal being cracked echoed throughout the room as he kicked huge chunks of rock at the slut, several of them missing. Still, the gravel and small rocks entered her mouth, causing her to gag, unable to cast and retreat with her hand holding her throat tightly. "Ugh. Fuck you." Colin spat, grabbing his dagger and stabbing it into his thigh as he stumbled forwards, almost toppling over but catching himself with his hands against the wall. "It's not over yet." Bryn yelled, stepping forwards and swinging his blades at Raven's torso, only for the orc to dodge it, before slamming his axe into Bryn's midsection, making him stumble backwards. But the damage was light, as Bryn's second sword sliced a chunk of flesh from Raven's cheek, blood squirting and oozing rapidly as he stepped back, forced to use the black axe to block a flurry of slashes and stabs from Bryn, who gained momentum. The orc backed up as Bryn rushed at him, his strength increasing as he swung his swords faster and harder than before, his eyes glowing brightly. Raven blocked Bryn's attacks with his axe, grunting as he pushed Bryn back, "I can't hold on any longer." Bryn screamed, his eyes growing green as a spiral of wind began to twirl around his blades, now sending sharp blades of wind with each attack, but his face became pale, his eyes less focused. "Fuck. Coming, wait." Colin's bloody body and broken bones creaked as he forced himself to aid Bryn in attacking Raven. Brilliant green flashes of light followed Bryn's blades as Raven's huge body slowly became covered in bloody wounds. Despite blocking several attacks with the black axe, his eyes narrow as the purple and black energy seemed to pump harder around his heart, filling him with more adrenaline and focus as he narrowly dodged Colin's sneak attack, thrusting his dagger towards Raven's through by catching his hands. Snap! A loud crack rang out as the dagger broke into pieces, Colin staggering backwards, clutching his hand. "Gah! Fuck!" Colin cried, gasping for air as he fell to his knees and dropped his weapons, his remaining hand gripping his wounded stump. Raven roared, his rage building as he slammed his axe into the ground and created a crater. The blood he shed earlier, now like a beautiful display, sprayed around him like a fountain of blood spraying into Bryn's eyes, forcing him to stop his attack, wiping the sticky blood that began to burn and sizzle his flesh. "Urgh. It's burning my face. Fuck. It's hot. Help. Fuck." Bryn moaned, his body shaking as the tears continued to pour from his eyes as he stumbled away from the raging orc, tripping on a rock and falling onto the floor, rolling across the lava like stones, with melted flesh and embedded into his body, causing a disgusting scent like roasted pork, until he finally managed to crawl out of danger and collapse upon the ground, sobbing loudly as his eyes burned and blistered. But his mind collapsed as he lay on the ground close to Colin, as they trembled, unable to defend themselves. "You bastard!" Marie shouted, her hands no longer holding the staff, as her face looked exhausted, sweat oozing from her face as she began to talk in tongues, flames bursting from the nearby lava. Each moment her face became even worse as more than a dozen fiery orbs swirled around her body, under her control. "Killing my little dogs. How dare a mere livestock even dream of hurting my things?" She screeched angrily, her voice echoing throughout the cave as she levitated the flames higher and higher, raising their velocity as she watched him with distorted eyes. "How about I kill all your pets?" Raven said coolly, his cheeks turning blue as he felt his lungs burning for breath and the mana drain from his body quickly, but he wouldn't give up so easily. "You filthy pig." Her screams signaled her flaming orbs to shoot towards him like homing missiles, curving and twisting through the air, creating an impossible path Raven couldn't even understand where they might go next. Instead, his body lowered, dashing directly towards Marie, his axe now swirling with a fierce purple shadowy energy as his willpower seemed to have dropped drastically, unable to check, as the throbbing pain in his head became more prevalent. His body hit Marie's with incredible force, knocking her back and smashing her into the wall, cracking it open as she slid along the rock surface, landing on the ground. The impact caused her to lose consciousness immediately. In contrast, Raven was left standing still, his body trembling slightly as he coughed up some blood and gasped for breath, his mind being beaten beyond sanity. His eyes fluttered as he looked at his surroundings, seeing the shattered remains of the walls, debris scattered everywhere and bodies littered around the room as the mass of fireballs began to cascade and bombard his body. Chapter 24-24 Dread. Monster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He struggled to move his arm, struggling to lift his heavy axe. "No, don't give in." With a deep sigh, Raven raised his axe high above his head, letting loose a roar as his body glowed bright purple and black. His skin had changed once more, becoming hard as steel with cracks running across his entire body, as purple veins began to appear along the length of his body. That pain from the daytime in the gym, he could feel his muscles twisting, snapping under the forced pressure, but he had no choice. Boom! Sparks erupted around his limbs as he swung downwards with unbelievable force, crushing the rocky floor beneath his feet, as he shoved his axes into the ground, forming a massive pit below him, swallowing everything within his reach, as huge rocks and lava shot into the air, stopping several of the balls of flame, but four managed to break through the debris, his shoulder, abdomen and right cheek hit by the boiling balls of fire. Shit! This isn't good. Ugh! Raven's eyes filled with tears of blood as the flames began to melt his flesh, charring the bones in his body, as he felt the very life seeping and slipping away from him, causing his eyes to grow tired. It didn't matter if he could resist damage and endure pain and torture. Pain coursed through every inch of his body as he screamed, dropping his axe and collapsing to his knees, coughing up copious amounts of blood. Don't sleep. Don't fade, push through. Ah! Marie wailed as she tried desperately to escape from the molten rock. Still, her movements were too slow, as two rocks fell from the huge movements of Raven, causing her legs to be crushed. She screamed in pain, watching as the flames exploded and engulfed Raven, thinking she won and let out a crazed cackle despite her horrid body. Then came silence, save for the sounds of screaming and cries of agony. In a state of a blur, Raven dragged himself with limping legs, sliding them across the ground as he reached Marie, knocking the boulders off the ground, before grabbing her hair, yanking it and dragging her towards the center of the room, her broken legs splitting and tearing as she became an amputee. No fuck. Stop. Please. Please help me. I'll do anything. She begged, but the only response was his sharp tail, smashing her face, causing a dark bruise under her eyes, and her teeth shattered, leaving her with only gums and a flailing tongue. Inside, his body burned with violent purple energy. If he didn't expel it from his muscles and flesh, he would suffer the rebound and even die from the whole body's empowerment. What are you going to do to her? Colin uttered as he knelt moments away from the now haggard Marie, her chest hanging out, not too big but an average size. Raven. Bryn shouted as he watched the orc roughly grasp her chest, pulling it tight, almost tearing them from her body as she let out a strange gasp of pleasure and pain, now urinating like a filthy dog. Oh. You know my name if I bully your mistress. Don't worry, I'll end your pathetic lives after I finish with her. For the sake of the many demi-humans that were killed, let's have this slut restore my body and increase my power. So I can kill more of you fucking cultists in the future. Both Colin and Bryn's eyes opened wide as they started to froth at their mouths. The one true God is human. The dungeons came to our world. The Savior is great. The Savior is holy. Our radiant dawn shall come. TSK, fucking cultists of the radiant dawn, well. Let's see if it comes before or after I drown this female pig. Raven said as he found her eyes filled with tears and terror rather pleasing. He lowered his pants as his mind grew increasingly clouded with rage and anger that came from somewhere deep inside him as flashbacks of high school played back once again, the students chaining him to a wall, beating him in turns with wooden sticks and planks due to his strong body. They said he violated the girl he was dating, despite her asking him out. Her begging him to go all the way with her, that if he loved her, he would. Now acting like it was true as she watched them happily torture and beat him for hours. Humans. No, not humans, but bigots. There are more good humans than bad. MNNNGH. The sounds of a woman choking and gagging soon filled the caverns, slowly turning into a pleasant and passionate sucking and slurping as the voices of two men seemed to scream in despair, seeing their former lover serving the filth that invaded their radiant world. Over an hour passed, maybe more, as Raven awoke from his stupor, his eyes opened wide, looking around him as his brain fought to comprehend what happened. He felt strange anger during the pain, wanting to punish them further. What the hell? He murmured, finding himself lying on the cold earth, his clothes torn and burnt. He was completely naked, his body was fully recovered. In the center of the room were Colin and Bryn. Their faces were filled with despair and horror as dried pools of blood were lying below them, while in the center of their gazes was Marie, her legs crushed, her upper body revealed with large claw marks and thick bruises from her fingers, her lower body untouched. Still, her mouth was filled with foam and strange fluids, snapped and unhinged, and her neck bent in a strange direction. Yet, she had a blissful smile on her face. A sense of disgust and regret began to fill Raven's body, his hands trembling slightly as he took a spare pair of clothes from his item ring. The flaming caves no longer felt warm to him, if anything, since he awoke, it felt like home, or a nice temperature to bathe. Am I becoming a monster? He looked at his hands, perfectly smooth and lacking any wounds or marks, the places destroyed by the fireballs fully recovered and even softer than before, now noticing that his cultivation had reached the second stage of Gate 1. Oh, cultivation stage. Gateway of Awakening, Stage 2. But something else caused his heart and blood to surge, forced to check his complete status to make sure it wasn't a dream as he began to kick the corpses of the three people into the lava, watching their bodies melt and dissolve in bubbles. He didn't know if their bodies would be spat from the entrance when he left or would fade into the dungeon, as even the Bureau didn't tell you what happened to dead adventurers, maybe to avoid betrayals. Oh, Alistair, Raven, Granbell. Oh, Chimera, Manticore/High Orc. Oh, age 28, visually 21. Oh, blood type O.Z1. Oh, level 10, class Dread Knight. Oh, experience 0/10. Oh, cultivation. The 12 Gates of Bliss, Manticore only. Oh, cultivation realm. Gate 1, Gateway of Awakening. Oh, cultivation stage. Stage 2. Oh, credits. 375 attributes, average equals 1, strength. 3.9 agility. 1.6 stamina. 5.6 vitality. 5.8 intellect. 2.9 Wisdom. 2.20 Skills. Manticore's Heart, passive, level 1. Increases vitality and stamina regeneration at all times, creating the perfect mate for a female manticore. Shadow Strike, level 1. Dash towards an enemy and brutalize them with a dark strike causing heavy shadow damage, ignoring defense. 5. Second cooldown stamina. 0.5 Wisdom. 1 Dread Aura, level 1. Cause fear to all enemies around you, slowing their actions for 2 seconds and 6 seconds after you take 20% reduced damage, but upon the end of the effect, you will take 50% more damage for 10 seconds. 12. Second cooldown. No cost. His actions with Marie seem to have increased, not his vitality and stamina like with Miriam, but rather his intellect and wisdom had increased slightly, rather than anything else. While he checked the Dread Knight class by tapping it, the system the guild made showed. Dread Knight. Unknown class, rare, strength plus 0.3 and vit plus 0.2 per level. Guess I'll ask Emily when I have the chance. Raven felt no sense of victory or joy, just like in the past when he managed to break the ropes binding him, beating everyone that tortured him half to death. Only the eyes of the girl that said she would stay by his side forever, now looked at him with fearful and trembling eyes. Chapter 25. Guiding Light. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next moments were honestly a blur for him, how he got back from the dungeon when he took the bus or walked, his body covered in the blood of the 3 people he killed as he walked through the slums, drew the gazes of many of those who would normally beg for credits or food. Instead, they hid in their small wooden crates or cardboard homes, waiting for the almond-skinned orc to pass through. Click. He managed to open the door, his hands trembling because of his mind's imbalance. Pushing through the door, there was the thick scent of a woman's lust and estrus that was slowly fading as light footsteps darted towards him, a cute dark-skinned girl, wearing a cheap cloth apron, stained with what seemed to be tomato sauce and other foods, as the scent of a slightly sour, but fragrant meal drifted from the kitchen. Welcome home, Raven. What's the matter? You're crying. Is there something wrong? Oh no, you're covered in blood. The next moment Lilith rushed towards him, her hands and actions nothing like the usual cheeky girl. Instead, she checked his body from head to toe, making sure he was all right. Then the small cuts that remained she gave them a gentle peck with her soft lips. You need to be more careful. The matron said a kiss can only heal light wounds. Raven stood in a daze, taking a moment to realize she was speaking as she believed in the old tales that mothers and older women would tell children about how their kiss would remove the pain, which struck a strange chord in his chest as he began to bellow with loud laughter, his mind troubled. Still, the feeling of someone waiting at home brought him the smallest amount of solace, a little portion of him saved from madness and regret. His huge body leaned down, hugging tightly onto the soft body of Lilith, lifting her into the air as they embraced each other tightly. Her face was filled with a colorful blush as she tapped his shoulders. I have to finish dinner. It's not much. Okay. Please. Just for a little longer. Lilith gave a small pout before surrendering to his hopeless dull eyes, leaning into their tight embrace, stroking his silky black hair and looking at him curiously. Raven became more youthful, losing some of that middle-aged edge, looking the same age as Lilith. Did something bad happen today? You seemed so happy last time, but now. It makes my chest tight just looking at you. Raven. He took a moment, his eyes showing various emotions, trying to speak, wanting to make an excuse or some grand reason, but he couldn't. Those purple eyes, no matter what lies he could spin, his chest throbbed, became tight and instead, his hands grasped her tighter, pushing his face into her neck as her scent soothed his erratic nerves and chaotic thoughts. Today. Her hands now twisting and massaging the back of his head, hot breath from his nose and lips causing her to shudder a little, but she remained serious, her face different from the usual playful Lilith, like she was the big sister or older woman now. I took a human life for the first time. 3 people. The moment he told the truth, his chest tightened, his huge hands grasping tightly onto Lilith's thin frame like a drowning man seeking some buoy or lifeline to keep afloat. Her lips smacked, and her body seemed to tremble as she hummed slightly before Raven felt a warm touch, her lips pressing against his forehead as she pulled his large body down, now resting his head on her bosom, forcing him to bend a little. "You had a hard time, didn't you?" Lilith's voice was gentle but like a mother's, as her eyes looked at the cabinet with the images of a young raven. A subtle brilliant glow started to shine from deep within her eyes. "Ah, they tried to kill you, right?" He hesitated, believing it was his fault for being born an orc, before he shook his head. "Ah. That's right." Lilith began to stroke his cheeks and head, her voice like his only guiding signal through his mind's blurry and clouded state, her fingers like signposts, her voice like a train platform announcement. "Then it's okay, it's all okay. How? Do you blame yourself? Do you regret killing them?" His eyes were like shining amethyst, more vibrant than his neon eyes, as she lowered her head, looking directly into his eyes, as her thumb stroked his cheeks, squishing the soft meat gently. I would have died. But I could have let them live. Then wouldn't others have suffered your fate?" Raven felt stunned when her eyes looked into his. It was like this young woman could see the future, see everything that happened and have all the answers to his questions, the sensation like when he viewed the first mural of the Manticore. They were demi-hunters. Likely many demi-humans would have died. Did you do bad things to them?" His body trembled, the remains of their bodies, both males were tortured for what seemed to be hours, their bones so fragile and crushed when he kicked them, they were like bones of skin. While Marie. He knew what he had done with her mouth, how he drained her very life using his cultivation technique in a foul and disgusting way. Stealing the pink energy and taking back the purple energy, leaving her an empty husk, before snapping her neck. I don't think they deserved peace or mercy. But my mind. It's confusing and chaotic. You cannot forgive yourself, can you, Raven? He opened his mouth, frozen for several moments. It was the truth, the moment he found his power increased and he gained a class. The guilt vanished for a moment, which only caused him to feel even worse when the adrenaline of battle faded. It's okay, sh. Lilith's fingers began to stroke under his eyes as if he was crying, but there were no tears, there never were. Yet he never refuted her words when she asked why he was crying earlier, because inside, he was like a child, the act of murder for the first time as a normal male who worked in a business for years. He wasn't a hardened warrior, part of the army or even a true adventurer, although his mother said the world was filled with filth and dirt. To protect him, she was never too direct, wanting him to learn on his own. Now he was learning, with his own hands stained with blood. I cannot forgive myself, even if they were human scum. I cannot kill without reason. His mind was focused as once again Lilith's warm lips pressed against him with a gentle peck, smacking against his cheeks one by one, then moving to his lips as she kissed Raven for the first time before pulling back after a few seconds passed, a light sound fo their lips coming together filling their ears, as she looked at him with brightly lit purple eyes. Large amounts of the dark and chaotic purple energy pouring into her body as refreshing and brilliant purple energy filled him. It wasn't the dirty purple with black, but pure purples, like Lilith's wondrous eyes or the marking on their bodies. If you cannot forgive yourself, then don't. Wait until you are ready. Until then, I will forgive you, accept your sins, and carry them with you. You saved me from that lonely hell. How can I sit around doing nothing while you fight alone in those dark dungeons? Her eyes were affectionate, and he felt the energy from his body filling hers, causing her to grow a few centimeters in height. Her face became more beautiful, with Lilith's amazed eyes more charming and soothing than before. She stroked his cheek with a faint smile, brushing away the sense of fear and dread towards his powers, like a lighthouse guiding him to shore. You will go that far? We've only just met. I merely gave you a place to stay. He didn't feel a strong romantic feeling for Lilith, but in this soothing moment, she had managed to make a small opening in his heart. He felt his mind clearing up as her hand stroked him, slowly removing the black, dirty energy as only a pure purple mist flowed through his body as if that darkness was corruption, self-doubt and his sins. Raven couldn't know how much his actions and presence saved her over the years, just like Lilith didn't know that she also saved him, at this moment when her words and the energy changed as if to make him, not force him to believe her words, lightening the load on his heart and mind. The pair looked into each other's eyes, both vibrantly glistening and wet as they leaned closer, their lips almost brushing together. Bubble. SSSSST. A loud bang and hissing sound came from the kitchen as they snapped out of their moment, Lilith giving a wry smile as she pulled out of his arms, her height now closer to his as she skipped into the kitchen, her bright face red with her hands covering her chest. My heart is moving so fast. Ah. What was that? She said in her usual voice, no longer the mature and motherly tone. I'm so tall now. So cool I can reach the top cupboard. Ah. Don't burn. Pasta, and don't overboil. Ah. Meanwhile, Raven at the door looked upwards, his body feeling refreshed as the cute voice in the kitchen caused him to smile wryly. Mother. I cannot accept the dark world of an adventurer as I am now, my heart is far too soft. He looked down towards the cabinet and then the kitchen as the loud banging and slamming of pans resounded. But with her. For her. And the future. I will do my best to change and accept your words and this way of life. If I don't kill them first, they will kill me and everything I care for. Once he finished whispering, the sounds in the kitchen began to irritate him, so he flung off his suit jacket, grabbed his apron from the hanger, and dashed into the kitchen. All right, what's wrong? Let's make dinner. Put more water in that pan, and we'll boil a new pasta set. You did the tomato well. Let's salvage this, a bit more salt and pepper, and it's good. How is the meat? Good. Let's finish together. Thanks to his long years of practice, the two began to salvage her meal as he gently taught her timers, when to remove the pasta, and if she liked it a certain way. He also gave specific times for each type and brand of pasta they owned. An hour later, as if the moment at the door never happened, the pair sat down and ate a tomato and meatball dish because she overcooked the spaghetti. They went with farfalle. As the meal went on, Raven lowered his fork, looking at the beautiful woman now eating the pasta like a beast, with tomato sauce around her lips, nothing like the charming motherly woman that helped him take the first step out of despair. He opened his mouth as she looked up, still sucking on a large beef meatball with a slurp. Lilith, will you come into the dungeon with me, not as a helper or luggage carrier, but as my partner? Chapter 26. Half-Orc pushes on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven walked along the morning path. Last night they did nothing but watch stupid romance and crime films together. After he ate, Lilith returned to her usual childish self, that shine in her eyes seeming to have vanished like some fit or trance. She was more relaxed and clingy, though. He thought, seeing the usual bus passing by, the old man's face seemed shocked, then smiling warmly, his wrinkles growing before the bus vanished in the distance. Today Raven wished to walk to the bureau instead of taking the bus. His skin felt great as the morning breeze washed over his body. Today the sun was out, as he wore a black shirt with a purple tie, the same shade as Lilith's eyes. Somehow he felt a little more confident and less somber with something that reminded him of her presence. The killing of those thugs no longer bothered him immensely, but he didn't feel comfortable knowing he'd taken human lives. Forget it, let's head to the bureau and hope Emily is working today. He placed the serpent's head, various fangs and ears from the goblins into his amethyst ring. He wanted her to help him process them, get some more credits, and move towards improving his guild rank. No, he had a class, it was almost time to help Lilith get hers. That's because the guild accepted anyone who had already managed to gain a class, whether a monster or not. Because sometimes, people might be in the wrong place, and a new monolith would spawn, sucking everyone in the nearby inside and have to finish their alternate dungeon level, be killed by monsters or die slowly without food or water. Raven didn't want to hold any prejudice towards others. However, the moment he saw passing humans with adventurer's gear, the purple energy inside his body began to pulsate, the anger he felt boiling. I won't party with strangers, at least not until I can grow as a man and accept everything. His steps were brisk and powerful as he began to approach the bureau's huge towering black figure, the same elegant entrance that made it look like a top-class hotel, clack. Raven's mind was too clouded right now, feeling trapped in a macabre mood as the faces and things he had done vibrant inside his mind. He pushed open the first doors, entering inside as the scent of flora and sweet flowers filled his nose, entering the second glass doors, noticing once again the same cafe was filled with women, not making the same mistake twice, he saw the girls only sign and maybe realized this was a permanent thing. Suddenly a charming voice sounded from the desk, her beauty seemingly even more incredible than before, no longer hiding her roots or the slight green tint of her skin. Emily waved to him with her hand and several vines with several colorful flowers sprouting, teasing Raven. You didn't even call me back and just vanished. I thought something bad happened to you. Do you know how worried I was when we found out? But your phone was answered by some annoying woman that kept saying you don't want some skanky ass hose. Thanks to her words, Raven remembered he had left his phone at home when going to the dungeon with that group of bastards. The voice was likely Lilith's. I'll make sure to scold her when we get home. Why do you ask that? He wondered, feeling apprehensive about whether she knew he was now a murderer. Instantly before he could even react or hear a response, a green flash filled his eyes, causing him to feel stunned. A soft body, both flesh and vines wrapped tightly around his body, as her head only came to his chest, her soft hands tapped his chest. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they might be the demi-hunters. But you didn't answer my phone for me to warn you. Then all of their signals died. Yours went to near death. I was so worried. Her beautiful eyes gleamed with slight tears as she looked up towards him. Raven felt a sense of relief. The feelings and emotions were so powerful at first, he wondered if she did it on purpose. Unable to give a complete response, his huge thumbs brushed against her cheeks, wiping away her tears, as her soft cheeks were like bao buns wobbling and squishing under his force. I'm sorry, I left my phone at home, and that girl is a little cheeky. As for those people, I don't. It's fine. I know. Emily's hands wrapped around his giant fists and narrowed her eyes, the vines around her body all bursting with vibrance and vitality from his body. Oh. Do you feel better? I can feel how energetic you are. Emily muttered as she blushed at the amount of vigor and energy oozing from his body, almost making her entire body shudder. Having never eaten so much, she felt a little light-headed. Raven, not wanting to divulge too much of his secrets as the bureau card didn't show half of his attributes or the information he could see. Instead, he wrapped his arms around her, lifting the dizzy girl and carrying her to the desk, the vines from her body all wrapping around him, coiling his arms and stroking his skin as she looked at him with a dazed and embarrassed face. Sorry, because you have such a powerful vitality, my race subconsciously saps the surroundings for such things. This is why we are a D.class danger level. Sometimes we can reach B.class or greater depending on age and hunger levels. Emily looked embarrassed, her vines still stuck to his arms, her little cheeks turning brighter red as she noticed and pulled them away. Don't worry, I know you've done things to help me, and even yesterday, don't be so hard on yourself. You were helping me, right? 30 credits for a simple task, that's more than some grade.F adventures get for quests. Her roots began to join together with the soft dirt under her desk, tapping the black marble with branch-like appendages. Looking away from him as she tried to recover, his body sat on the edge of her desk, filling her with a powerful burst of his wondrous, delicious vitality and masculine scent that caused the poor Emily to be flustered. So for the ones that need essence, it doesn't have to be sexual, just being close, huh? Raven thought upon noticing her admission. Well. I wanted you to keep coming and choosing my desk. Choosing her desk. What does she mean? He thought. Instead, he changed the subject and just wanted to clarify one thing for her, not wanting it to affect their dynamic. BL.net Emily. Can you not pair me with others again, at least? Until I'm ready. Definitely. I will check their backgrounds properly next time. Forgive my lack of professional conduct. Nah, you helped me a lot, so don't feel so down. He was too used to messing with Lilith, rubbing her head or playing fighting with her. Thus Raven's hand reached out and began to stroke the soft hair of Emily. It was silky and smooth to touch, like a soft layer of water covered the strands, as she looked up with wide eyes and a gaping mouth. When he tried to pull away, the vines from her body started to wrap around his hand as she rubbed his palm against her head with more power. Just a bit. A little more. Her soft voice sounded, the eyes that watched him like a begging puppy. Raven ignored these small things after reading the book before bed about monster girls and the information the strange manticore stone imbued in his mind. He realized that some races were different or had weird habits that shouldn't be interrupted or laughed at. She's just taking some nutrition like a cute, big-breasted plant in my garden. How come there are never any other adventurers here? I am not that special yet, huh? To me, you are. She whispered with a slight pout. Raven heard it but just smiled and pretended he didn't hear, stroking her head and hair more thoroughly as her eyes narrowed. Ahem. Emily cleared her throat, then continued, trying to resume her customer service voice, despite her dancing vines and the soft ones coiling his body with pretty flowers and petals blooming. That's because this desk is private and reserved mostly for high-level female adventurers. Mostly those of a monster race or those needing essence to live. Did I become a woman? Raven acted shocked, his face with wide eyes and an open mouth, looking at his own body, grabbing his chest, then crotch with an exaggerated sight as if he thought it might be gone. His stupid actions caused Emily to giggle from his horrible sense of humor. No, you see, the bureau buildings are all built in former monoliths. The top brass will subdue them, then change the rules inside to suit them. Once you entered the first door, did you never find it strange that there was a slight delay and dizziness before the door opened for you? I just saw the pretty face at the desk. Ah. Stop, we're already going on a date, no need to butter me up. Emily said shyly, despite the various roses and other romantic flowers sprouting in her green hair like a beautiful bouquet of loveliness. I just said the truth, though. But is this woman cute? How is she not married? Miriam, forgive me, but Friday you're probably going to die. This woman pushes all the right buttons. Well. When a person enters the door, a strange mechanism will scan them. Of the various desks, there are some suited to humans, elves and other races to avoid issues as you see in those stupid novels where a newbie is hazed or has to fight a stupid duel with a wastrel. Emily likes to watch anime, huh? Is she also into our 18+ stuff? Raven's mind wandered to finding a certain manticore watching those things labeled, Orc X Monster Girls, on the laptop at 3 a.m. last night. Raven shook his head, then continued to listen to her conversation. As she flicked her wrist, the walls of both sides of the building vanished. On the right was a room filled with hundreds, maybe more human adventurers, with over 8 receptionists constantly shouting and calling them over. It was chaotic and wild as some even started arguing at the desk. Also, you are treated differently for various reasons. Firstly, your mother was a high-ranked adventurer, so sending you with those brutes would be stupid. Second, because of your high vitality and recovery, the monster girls here would benefit most from your presence. Even if they come just after you leave, they will feel perkier and more vibrant. Emily looked at him, her lips opened with her last point spoken in a less sultry but more cute and quiet voice. The last reason, it's because I found you attractive. And wanted to get to know you after reading your information. He looked at her with strange eyes briefly, then gave a confident smile, ruffling her hair, before looking at the other side. To the right was a quiet room filled with monster girls who seemed more of the beast type, orderly approaching and submitting their quest rewards and skipping outside with their cute fluffy tails and ears. "Oh. You like beast girls?" Emily asked, her voice a little thorny as Raven watched the bodies of the attractive beast women, who were very rare outside in public as they were usually very isolated to protect themselves and weaker males due to the existence of heat, which drove them almost mad once a month. Ah, those tight abs and powerful muscles. Not to mention their big butts and fluffy tails. What red-blooded man doesn't love such amazing women? Arg. He felt a slight prick in his arm as her vines seemed to poke them with some thorns as she turned away. His mouth turned into a large smile, leaning close to her soft, petal-like ears. But I prefer the cute, dryad girls the most, how their colorful flowers bloom, showing their emotions and feelings. Such cute and honest girls are more wife material. Hahi. Emily's body shot backwards, her vines all suddenly swaying and fluttering in the air, filled with a myriad of different flowers and petals, from those symbolizing romance, lust and passion, to those for embarrassment and shock. "Don't forget our date on Friday, my cute dryad. We'll be meeting at 4 p.m., and I'll take you out to eat. Make sure to message me what you would prefer to eat. You look the most captivating when all your petals and vines bloom." Oh. She watched him walk away quickly, her little hands hammering her marble desk as she tried to still her racing heart. "Don't compliment our flowers and blooms so much. Beautiful. Captivating." Her voice became more sultry as she watched his body slowly vanish out the doors. "Because those kinds of words will make a dryad attached. Obsessed. Don't think I'll release you from my roots now. My future sexy orc husband Fufu." Chapter 27, Bonus, 27. Half.orcs level up. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Emily stood at her desk, watching him leave with her eyes like a charmed schoolgirl before the door suddenly fluctuated, a beautiful woman filled with an enchanting figure, her body wearing black leather armor, with her crotch and breasts almost visible, two curved swords at her waist. The dryad completely ignored her presence, who watched, thinking about what kind of things will happen in a few days on Friday, her heart palpitating as her cheeks turned a light red, her petals and flowers now showing soft pinks and shy red flowers. "Oh, if it isn't my good friend, the virgin dryad of over 400 years. The husky voice of the woman with bat wings and a long black tail sounded as she put a small box onto the marble table. Bang! "Oi Emily, someone left a huge bag on your desk. Wake up." Finally, Emily turned her vision towards the small box and the giant bag Raven had left. "Oh. What's he doing?" She opened the sack, pondering if she should borrow one of her father's items boxes to keep monster spoils and trophies, then give it to Raven to avoid these horrible one-time-use bags. "Maybe I'll wait till the date, as thanks." When she opened the bag, she was shocked at the silvery scaled head, around 10 inches from its neck and the serpent's head. "Wow! What a rare sight," the female succubus said, her body leaning on the marble, her humongous breasts swaying as she tried to lean back into the back, seeing the silver serpent's head and neck. "Isn't this the rare spawn for the Burning Cove? Who killed it? I think this thing's head is worth quite a lot, the scales are pristine too. What a promising newbie. Which girl is it?" The succubus didn't think it was male as Emily was famous for being stubborn, never taking male adventurers due to hating their fearful look once she revealed her race. A rare spawn was something that didn't usually happen, something that, even after hundreds of years of studies, from both the races which traveled with the dungeons and humans native to this planet. Rare spawns were usually an exotic species of the regular boss, with varied colors and different looks. A sub-race boss is usually more than twice the difficulty, sometimes even 3 times more powerful. The difficulty didn't mean their vitality, as they were usually friendlier in that regard, but instead referred to their danger ranking. The regular serpent boss is a danger rank of G+ at best. While the silver serpent is E, and the poison of its fangs and the durability of its scales are the most deadly parts of this variant. Emily didn't reply, her fingers typing into the system as a set of weights, scales, and strange chemicals appeared from the marble desk that began to transform into a judgment and processing station. Quality. 82%. Let's call it 85%, Emily whispered. Oi. You just gave the girl an extra 30 credits for nothing. SH. Emily wore a cute set of glasses as her vines and branches held the serpent, testing its durability, purity, quality and freshness. Meat. Good quality. 92%. Durability. Only 71% some damage to scales near the neck. Negligible. The succubus watched with a stunned face. Emily's basic tax was high, but her analytical ability was the best in this bureau branch, maybe the best in the country. Was this the same stingy dryad that never gave women a good deal? Then Emily put the snake onto a strange steel plate before glass wrapped around it and began to descend into her marble desk, likely to the guild's inventory or butchery to be fully processed. She then began to calculate his credits. 495 credits. Even after the guild's 25% tax. Emily spoke aloud, her bad habit, as she began to type the details into the system, as a massive 3D picture of Raven appeared, showing censored bank details and credit rating in the green, as she proceeded to transfer his money on the spot, usually being sent after a few days. But Raven was exceptional, and she wanted him to have money for their date. Suddenly the succubus hammered the table, her face shocked, like she had seen the end of the world, looking at Emily, who looked neat and mature, still pretending to work as she enjoyed seeing the images and videos of Raven near the monoliths. Oi, oi, oi. What is this? The eternal virgin Emmy is watching a male. A male orc at that. Wait. Those credits went to him. Emmy, did you fuck an orc and become his receptionist? The girls betting you were a man. Hater will cry. Her voice was loud, resounding in the room as the open cafe door suddenly began to ring with voices, the succubus giving a cheeky smile before looking back at Emily, who was still calm. Claudina. Is it wrong for me to fall for a man? N.No. Claudina, you were on a tax break of 10%, right? Emily, mommy, please, forgive me. The succubus was visible, shaking her body, the beautiful curves likely to send any average male to heaven just viewing this scene. Her ass slipped off the black marble as she kneeled on the ground and began to beg. We haven't even dated yet. How can we have fucked? Emily whispered, showing her embarrassed face. He was full of vigor. If I wasn't in love with my darling and a few 100 years younger, I might just have jumped him there on the spot. His essence filled me halfway, just passing me briefly. Darling needs 6 shots for that. Maybe my daughter. Oi. It's amazing that Emily, the old spinster, has fallen for such a young orc. Can your old virgin dryad hips take it? Won't your trunk shatter and roots snap? Claudina. Please don't tease me. I'll take 40% tax. TSK.No fun. Claudina smiled, her face nothing but joking as she fluttered to her feet with flapping bat wings. Her face instantly switched, shocking Emily as the atmosphere of the current S-rank succubus queen Claudina wasn't for vanity. Emmy, I have bad news. Recently, those cultists have been on the rise. The demi-hunters are increasing daily. Keep that orc safe, he's too valuable to other girls. Especially the lesser succubi who cannot stop their endless thirst. I will protect him with everything I have. That's good, a former SS rank assassin protecting him should be quite safe, but don't stop other girls approaching him. His essence is the real deal, just walking past when he's fresh is more than most guys giving them several cream pies, okay? Tisk, get out, you damn horny slut. Theta M, hahaha. Later Emmy, good luck. Deposit my things like usual, 30% to my little princess, 40% to my darling and the rest to the usual account, okay? No problem. Claudina turned around before heading towards the door, her swaying hips alluring men and women alike. At the same time, she winked at the cute girls peeking from the cafe for gossip. How about I teach you skills that can drive a man insane? Really, like what? Emily showed a fascinated face for a moment, imagining Raven's raunchy requests in the future, her lips overflowing with dryad sap and nectar. Well, when my darling's cock is in my mouth. Ah, stop. So lewd. But you'll be sucking his cock one day, right? He's an orc, too. That thing, I can see it from his build and the bulge in his pants. But it's probably over 26 centimeters, not to mention the circumference. You should probably start practicing, or he'll tear your little roots and make you scream. Really? It's big. But that big? Aren't men usually the size of 2 fingers together? A bit longer. Ha ha ha. Don't lump orcs with normal men. I'll write some tips, less slutty and more informative, and give them next time, okay? Ah, thank you, Dina. It'll reduce your tax by 5%, so your wedding can advance sooner. So let me know more, okay? I want to make him love me, crazy about me. Foo-foo, being the president's daughter is a great bargain. Please don't tell Raven. So the orc's name is Raven. Similar to the Raven Tempest. To Morgrana. My dearest friend. It's him. That's his mother. The succubus stopped momentarily, looking back in shock, then quickly left the guild, muttering about, making sure to arrange a meeting with her daughter or something, which caused Emily to shudder. No, that can't happen. Before that little bitch meets him. Friday is game night. Dina's daughter was a man-eater. She would devour her cute Raven. Thus she began to consider practicing like Dina said, rushing back to her desk as she typed. I won't give in. Let's just take a peek, mother won't come here. So let's just take a peek quietly. How to give a blowjob to a large orc company. Raven didn't head home, instead using the guild's terminal to message Lilith that he would be late and bring takeout for dinner so she could have fun alone for a few more hours. Let's go to the closest dungeon. He whispered before jogging towards the north, where a simple goblin dungeon related to the Whispering Caverns existed. Its danger level was lower than the Burning Cove, so he didn't need to worry. Phew. I feel so good when jogging now. Like I'm flying through the air each time I take a long stride. He began to feel more positive and relieved after smelling the scent of Emily. It was like she continuously emitted a calming and relaxing scent. Today was closer to a citrus scent. Could she feel my uncertainty and stress? His body was so flexible, without even paying attention. Raven's senses made him dodge and avoid all obstacles and people walking close. He focused his vision forward, trying to clear his mind. At the corner of his vision, he kept seeing the naked body of Marie, or the broken corpses of Colin and Bryn. I must learn to control my anger and heart. Those 3 are not the only ones I will kill in my life. Like mother said. Lilith is there to support me at home. Emily in the bureau and the ardent fox when I need to satisfy my desires. With quick footsteps, he approached the monolith with a faint smile, the enormous black axe forming in his right hand, shimmering in the sunlight. Chapter 28. Half-orcs level up. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Raven entered the cave, his body passed through the purple portal with ease, his heavy steps sinking inside the ground as he felt the dungeon's atmosphere enshroud him. The air was damp and musty, and dripping water echoed throughout the cavern. It's a bit wet this time. Raven thought as his feet stepped into the slightly soft mud, his eyes sharp as the darkness couldn't hinder his vision, saving the need for torches that would give away his position. The first room inside the dungeon was spacious, with high ceilings and a wide entrance. At the same time, the floor was uneven and covered in rocks and pebbles. A strange crystal illuminated the walls, giving a small amount of light, revealing they were covered in moss and lichen. Raven noticed several tunnels leading off in different directions as he looked around the room. He couldn't see very far down any of them, but he could hear faint noises echoing from one of the tunnels. Raven cautiously approached the tunnel where the noise was coming from. As he got closer, he could make out the sound of rushing water. He peered down the tunnel and saw a small stream flowing through it. The water looked clear and inviting, but Raven knew better than to drink from it without first testing it. He took out a small vial and filled it with water from the stream. Thanks to the glowing crystals, he could see the stream better and began looking for signs of corruption. "I wonder if I'll get sick from drinking dungeon water," he mused before deciding to test his luck. After determining the water was safe to drink, Raven took a long swig and felt a refreshing coolness flow through his body. He continued down the tunnel, eager to see what lay ahead in the dungeon's depths. He heard more voices now, some sounded like people speaking, while others seemed to be growls or moans. He even caught himself listening intently to the sounds, hoping someone might say something that resembled words. But that was wishful thinking, as the yelps of dog-like creatures began to sound like they were having a conversation. Do dungeon monsters have a sense of willpower? He wondered, holding his axe tightly. Slowly, like a stalking tiger, Raven walked further into the dark tunnel. His footsteps became louder on the hard stone floor with his sticky boots, causing a slight squelch with each step. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up and revealed an expansive chamber beyond. A large pool of water surrounded by stalactites hung over its surface, creating a mist which created a veil of fog within the room. A thick layer of dust coated everything in sight, making Raven feel uncomfortable as he hated dirt, especially on his suit. "Let's buy something nice. I have extra cash. Some more flexible dungeon gear must be in the Bureau and Adventurers online market." Phew. 12 kobolds. He wasn't just lazily wondering about fashion but spending a moment to count the footsteps and distance of most of the kobolds that were moving around near his position. Raven wasn't one for stealth, but he wasn't an idiot either. As his body began to shimmer with a purple mist, his energy, or rather aura, was no longer black. As it began to wrap around the axe like a serpent, he felt the familiar sense of drain of his stamina and willpower, now able to judge his rough remainder thanks to practicing with Lilith the night before. 9 shadow strikes. Raven grabbed onto the wall tightly, his muscles bulging as the force of his body crushed the rocks, launching himself out like a catapult towards the first 2 unsuspecting kobolds, who suddenly yelped as his thick blade decapitated them with a sickening crunch, the momentum of his body sending him flying into the center of the chamber. Thud. His body landed in the central circle, cracking the ground as the 10 kobolds around him began to yelp and bark as they all picked up their weapons and rushed towards him. Strange black ripples began to form in the air around Raven as he let out a vicious shout from his mouth, a fearful bellow as the kobolds stopped their movement, all shuddering as Raven's grim smile flicked up into a wicked grin. With axe in hand he began to limber his body, pulling back his axe, he began to spin rapidly. Shadow strike. With a burst of speed, he swung his weapon at the nearest kobold, knocking it backwards with a loud thump, leaving only 9 left standing. They would only stand still for 2 seconds as his body, like a swirling storm approaching, provoking. The remaining kobolds charged forward in unison, but Raven had already anticipated such behavior, spinning his axe in circles so fast that it appeared blurry. His movements were fluid, like a snake slithering across the earth, striking every direction simultaneously as the 9 kobolds collided, smashing into a heap of bones and flesh. Raven stood there, waiting patiently as the last 3 crawled slowly toward him, grunting and groaning as they attempted to pull themselves upright again. They didn't know how much time remained until Raven struck, nor did he care. With an axe overhead, he executed them with a cold heart, feeling a strange sensation as the final few died. Killed kobolds x12. Gained 36 EXP, gained 120 credits, cheap. Too cheap. Kobolds were such a pitiful creature, worth a mere 10 credits. Even goblins are worth 20. Poor little guys. Raven thought, his actions the opposite as he skinned their fur, sliced their ears and pulled their fangs, his face emotionless like a psychopath. You have gained enough experience to level. Accept. Slice. His knife skill began almost instinctively to fillet the kobold meat. Somehow, it smelt tasty to him, even goblin meat that was disgusting when he saw it in the market in the past. I've sure changed. Please level me up. Level 1, oh, experience. 36 tenths, processing level, oh. Please choose your level up reward. 2 halves, bonus attributes, skill upgrade, class upgrade, unlock first talent, second at level 20, what is this? School. Why give me a multiple choice? What if I choose wrong? Raven was never told this by the system or Emily, wondering if it was common knowledge. Yet even his mother didn't tell him. As he was finally finished with collecting some good meat for the next few days' dinners, he washed his hands of the sticky blood and flesh in the kobold holy lake, but he didn't realize that this was where their young were born. He then noticed a new hint/help section on his guild card before noticing his current credits were strange, as a weird message was attached. Oh, credits. 1,000, you should have gotten only 495, but take 10 credits extra as a token of my affection. Stay safe, from Emily. The level.up rewards are random. Usually, you would only be given the choice of the attributes and talent first. He leaned back, cleaning his axe in the water, too, before wiping it with a special cloth, then adding a swab of oil, whistling the pianist lament as the kobolds began to sink into the dungeon floor. So they will start to vanish in 30 minutes. When do they respawn? 1 hour. Bonus attributes, chosen. Strength plus 0.1 intellect plus 0.1 vitality plus 0.2. The moment the attributes were added, he suddenly felt his muscles and flesh acting strange, like a slight tingling sensation, before transforming into a full-fledged cramp and spasm, causing him to hold on to the short wall, snapping off the head from the kobold's holy maiden statue. Arg. Fuck. Why does it hurt so much every damn time? Congratulations. Strength. 4.0 vitality. 6.0 intellect. 3.0, each time your attributes reach a complete number, your body will undergo a qualitative change. The difference between a 3.9 and 4.0 strength warrior is more than a simple 0.1. Shut up. This pain is like someone is tearing my damn muscles off or making me wear a 200 kilograms body suit after a full body workout the day before. He gritted his teeth, trying not to scream in agony as the sensations continued before they disappeared, leaving him panting heavily with sweat pouring down his forehead. Raven checked his clock. Having killed the kobolds 48 minutes ago, he closed his eyes, trying to remember his former position. The patrol, where the most kobolds were and the most efficient way to kill them every hour. Phew. I don't want to upgrade my skills just yet. When I don't feel for them, let alone something that might change how I fight before I understand my class. Let's go with a talent. Unlock first talent, chosen. Oh, Heart of Dread, Max, you are an existence of dread, and your heart cannot be inferior and tied to morality. Lowers all mental instability during combat or inside dungeons by 40%, paranoia, inferiority complex, envy, guilt, regret. Immune to all effects related to fear and dread. Can use vitality to cast skills and spells. A sudden calm filled his body, although it didn't remove those feelings. Instead, it dampened them during combat and inside the dungeon. His self-hatred began to dwindle, now realizing the other side that if he didn't kill them, how many others might die. Although some might chastise him, he had Emily, Lilith and his mother's words to support him. Good. This seems boring for most people, but for me. Clang. His axe readied, looking at the center circle. Only a few minutes until the kobolds would respawn, but his heart was on fire, like he was a slight battle junkie, already flowing with purple energy ready to use both, Dread Aura, and Shadow Strike, the instant they spawned, planning to whirlwind the poor dogs to death, then farm them for the next 4 hours. Oh, experience. 26/20ths, processing level, oh. Please choose your level up reward. 2 halves, bonus attributes, skill upgrade, class upgrade, upgrade Shadow Strike twice. Oh ho ho ho. Jackpot. Raven began to feel satisfied as the slight changes to his skill filled his mind, from an overhead slash to a wide sweeping cleave, able to be used while he performed whirlwind, which was a skill, but he could perform it with just his ability. I should maintain my daily practice, but add training skills with my axe in the future. If I don't need to waste points to learn skills, just perform them. Isn't it far better? I'll also make Lilith learn this way. Although I want to learn some magic one day. Raven stood in silence, breathing slowly as he practiced a martial breathing exercise his mother taught him to increase the oxygen taken into the body with each breath, 2 tiny breaths then one slightly elongated. He continued as the timer ticked down to 1 hour. The Kobold massacre was about to begin as the Black Death reaped their lives. Without care for the dungeon rules or etiquette, he wanted to avoid being the weaker party, and if asked, he'd say fuck the rules. Killed Kobolds x12. Gained 36 EXP, gained 120 credits. Killed Kobolds x12. Gained 36 EXP, gained 120 credits. Killed Kobolds x12. Gained 36 EXP, gained 120 credits. Killed Kobolds x12. Gained 36 EXP, gained 120 credits. Oh. Please choose your level up reward. August 8th, bonus attributes, skill upgrade, class upgrade, unlock second talent, level 20. He chose to upgrade attribute 6 times and Shadow Strike twice, for excellent results as his body was covered in sweat. The sticky suit now felt disgusting as his body smelled of his strong odor. The white shirt on his body was now see-through, as his alluring almond muscles were bulging but tightly packed in his firmer frame. Bonus attributes, chosen. Strength plus 0.3 intellect plus 0.2 vitality plus 0.5 stamina plus 0.2 agility plus 0.7 wisdom plus 1.20 level. 7 class. Dread Knight experience. 36/70ths attributes, average equals 1, strength. 4.3 agility. 2.3 stamina. 5.8 vitality. 6.5 intellect. 3.2 wisdom. 3.4 Shadow Strike, level 5, dash towards an enemy and brutalize them with a dark cleaving double strike, new, causing heavy shadow damage, ignoring defense. It can be used 2 times per cast. New. 3-second cooldown stamina .0.5.1.5 wisdom .0.1.0.50 credits. 1720, well fuck me senseless. A mere day of grinding. I've made more than I used to make in a year, working 65 hours a week. Raven spoke, his sweat forming a small pool, small black dirt seeming the last of his impurities and dirt, but an hour passed, and it seemed that nothing respawned. He was about to leave when suddenly his body felt extreme danger. Whoosh! A huge skeleton, over 2 meters in height, wearing a black full-plate armor, attacked him with a massive great sword, the withered bones painted red, with a sizable flaming skull inside the helmet. What the fuck is that? The swing of its sword caused the entire room to fill with a gust of wind, a feeling of dread as the room resounded with a howl after its cleave missed Raven's head by a mere inch or two, turning the kobold's holy maiden statue into mere dust particles. Shit. This isn't normal. Somehow, he believed his farming of the dungeon might have spawned this monster, probably aimed to kill poachers and people like him. However, I fucking love challenges. Come at me, you red skull bastard. Raven bellowed, his body swelling with power as his muscles and body began to glow a dark purple. his neon eyes glowing with a piercing gaze as he lunged towards the skeleton, his axe and fist ready to pound him into bone meal. The moment he resolved to fight, a massive red bar appeared under the skeleton's body, as a name glowed with fiery mana above his head. It was strange but seemed to be caused by the dungeon's magic rather than the skeleton himself. Equals level 15. Ragavad. Slayer of wretched poachers. Let us fight Ragavad. Grr. The skeleton's flaming face billowed with red flames as its armor clunked, body shifted forward. Chapter 29-29. Poacher, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the elegant reception, a dryad was currently doing scientifical experiments. At the same time, her fingers were hidden beneath her black marble desk. Her cute pointed ears filled with cat-themed earphones, as various pink and brightly colored flowers were rapidly blooming and pollinating from her body in vines. It's thick. Like 3. Almost 4 fingers. A wet sound echoed through the room, a dark red bar saying, "Closed," across the entrance to her reception. On the screen, she was playing a set of videos posted by a popular pornographic site for monster girls. This site was a very informative video dubbed "Minotaur Mommy Milks a Horny Orc Stud." When searching on the Moomoo search engine, she found this site by sheer accident, coming across a strange but registered advertisement that showed that amazing movie title. The site was named, The Ardent Orc, a news site linked to the brothel, The Ardent Vixen. Thus the moment she opened the thumbnail and watched the 5-minute preview of that massive dark almond meat club abusing the female Minotaur, Emily instantly entered her details to pay the 20 credits for access to the entire video. 5 hours split into 5 1-hour parts. Her reason for the quick purchase: the male in question looked uncannily like Raven. Thus, she immediately began to replace the male with her current crush. Luckily, as the daughter of the president, she could close her desk without permission and started over an hour ago. Now a tiny pot of dryad sap was already sealed on the table, second only to the elves' holy nectar. A dryad sap was a potent elixir for health, staying youthful and pretty. This pot was worth more than 300 credits alone. Her purchase of the video helped her profit considerably as she began collecting the slimy juices with a peach scent once again, as the video almost showed the orc's face. He has blue eyes. Ah. Raven. Will you ravage me like this? I might break. My roots can only stretch so much. She wanted to praise the woman who posted the videos and envied her but felt awe for the woman who quickly took such a huge thing and did not break too much. Emily scrolled down, looking at the poster named Miyako with hearts beside her name and a cunning fox emoji, then a cute minotaur emoji Miriam for the actress while they named the actor Orc Daddy. Once again, as she watched the scene heating up, Orc Daddy began to push his almond log deep into the small mouth of the minotaur before filling her with a hot, creamy dose of his milk once again. Emily began to convulse as she continued watching the last few minutes as he grabbed the woman's horns and pounded her face. Snot and drool oozed from her face as she pictured herself as that minotaur before mid-climax. A loud buzzer began to sound, before the video shut off, as her second jar was overflowing with dryad sap. A strange wave of energy and power began to swirl through the air, followed by the powerful vibrations caused by certain magics, before a sudden flash of black light shone in Emily's dazed eyes, luckily managing to close her legs and cover herself with the fresh petals as her bright blooming flowers began to retract, her chest heaving as she continued to feel the afterglow of bliss. The next moment all the receptionists from the lowest ranks to the B-class receptionists appeared in the central hub. Because the entire headquarters is a monolith, there was a main reception, and this was the place. All the others were sub-spaces or rooms created inside the dungeon by the current master, Emily's mother. What? It's all sticky. Damn. I almost. So stupid, Emily. What are you doing just because their muscles and body look alike? You actually. At work. Mother will beat me. She quickly hid her 2 jars in her item ring that shimmered a dark green before standing up and rushing towards the others to line up for the briefing. A poacher. Why would there be a poacher in the newbie area? Maybe their charge didn't tell them that bad things happen if you farm the dungeons for too long. But a newbie clearing that much so early on. Isn't it a mistake or an angry veteran? The various receptionists and staff spoke amongst each other as Emily stood tall. She must remain an exemplary figure, avoiding her actions affecting her mother's stature because she loved her mother and admired her for many years. Bang! Suddenly the large stone doors were kicked open as a beautiful woman with long black hair, golden eyes and two curved horns on the side of her head charged in. Her body was lightly clothed despite being a member of the task force, and her gigantic ass swaying with seductive and rippling movements as she looked around with an arrogant and stern face. Claudina's daughter. Great, she's so annoying. Emily thought to herself. I am Zestria Mestre Class B Enforcer. I hope you follow procedure and cooperate thoroughly to discover the current issue. Despite having a private room, Emily wasn't a higher rank than some other receptionists. This was merely her perk of being the president's daughter and taking on all the problem women. A female with long beast ears and a tail stepped forward, her face nervous as she slightly trembled as the 6 task members, all succubi, stood holding both cold weapons and hot weapons like plasma pistols. We have reason to believe a poacher is in the sector near Wailing Caverns. It is a low-leveled rookie, not an experienced adventurer. Low-leveled rookie. Please don't be Raven. Emily worried. A blonde succubus with blue eyes swayed closer to the female beast, whose body began to shudder from the sheer charm of these women that could affect males and females alike. The spawn. Ah. It's Red Skull. Type 2. She stuttered as the succubus began to stroke her cheek, the sharp claws almost pricking her eyes. Ririm, stop teasing the poor girl, Zestria warned, her eyes narrowing as she began to open the bureau's system panel and performed a distant scan. She stepped forward, the information slowly downloading to her personal data panel and adventure card. Who is the adventurer? Any information? Her husky voice sounded unaware that how she leaned against the marble desk caused many staff to experience a light sense of arousal and heat. She's just like her slutty mother. Unaware and wondering why strange men try to molest or violate her. Emily pouted as she finally began to check the information on her desk, closing the premium receipt and pages before adding them to her incognito bookmarks. The next voice caused her to shudder, almost dropping her data terminal as her plants began to bloom dark red flowers, a sense of dread and panic filling her heart as she trembled on the spot. A rookie, race is half-orc, and his codename is Raven. Real name Alistair Granbell. His time as an adventure? Zestria asked. Less than 3 days. Ririm said as she looked stunned at the data but stayed quiet and quickly saved his profile to her bookmark. Bang! Zestria slammed her fist on the table, her massive breasts shaking violently as they almost slipped from her thin black bra with a fierce look on her face, gleaming golden eyes staring at the picture of Raven, her eyes also seeing what Ririm saw and adding him to her short list of contacts. Shit! Have the team ready to cleanse the dungeon and send a medical team. But it's useless. Who is his charge? She yelled. She wanted him to be alive when they arrived, but hope was slim. Me. Emily stood up, no longer caring about the enforcer team or Claudina's daughter. She heard his name, the man she had been most concerned with for the past 300 years since she hit her first bloom and puberty. All the other receptionists were shocked that the one who made a mistake was the president's daughter. They all wanted to scold her but didn't have the guts. However, one woman did. She was a trusted friend and aide to her mother and the head receptionist. Her long brown hair and thick glasses sparkled as she stepped forward before Emily, her high heels clacking on the stone floor. Smack! Before Emily could even open her mouth, the sound of the woman's palm slapping Emily resounded through the room as they all began to gasp. The head receptionist was very strict but never physical and caused them all to become shocked. You know the dangers poaching causes, not only to the one who does it but to everyone who enters that dungeon until we clear it, right? Why? Yes, I do. Emily answered, her cheek red, while small flowers began to sprout above it, drooling a soft oil along her cheek, causing the red handprint to fade slowly. I have to inform your mother about this while you should go back and prepare for that adventurer's funeral. Next time, be more thorough. Wait. Emily shouted as she watched the head receptionist Gladys walk away. Her eyes were sharp, the green globes almost shining, as she stood up straight, her branches and vines all narrowing around her body. Please. Let me go to the scene. I have to see. I need to see him. His end. Instantly, the tone and emotions caused Gladys to turn around, a look of understanding and sorrow on her face. Of course, she would know the worries of both Emily and her mother, that Emily never intended to meet males or that normal human males despised their races because of their ability to sap life essence. Auntie Gladys. Please. I beg you. Gladys looked into Emily's eyes, seeing the slight tears and determination, before she stopped, giving a slight nod to her and continued to walk away. Her lips formed a bitter smile, whispering in a low voice. Oh silly girl, she's fallen for an adventurer. Such a foolish but common mistake. Gladys rubbed a faded, rusty ring on her left ring finger, a solemn look as she left the room ultimately. Yes. I can go. You won't be dead. He's not dead, I know it. Emily convinced herself as she began to rub her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. Zestria walked over, handing a basic harness to Emily, her face less tight than before as she smiled at Emily, someone who was very close to her mother. L.C. Alright, come with us. We won't baby you, so don't act like an idiot. Follow my orders and make sure to prepare yourself. He's irreplaceable to you, right? Mother said you hated males, but for him, you are even leaving your tree to visit him. Emily began to put on the harness before looking toward the exit as her genuine feelings left her lips. I hope you will become where I root my tree eternally. Zestria watched with shocked eyes as Emily left the building with quick, darting steps. Even old forest witches can fall in love, huh? But, from his profile, it seems many would be willing to do that same, an orc male with SSS rank vitality and sperm health. SSS plus rank life essence. What an amazing level of masculinity. Zestria licked her lips with her long red tongue, her body moving with natural charm with each silent step as her wings and tail fluttered behind her. Even me. Chapter 30, Bonus, 30. The Black Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A flash of black light smashed into the rocky cavern walls, the sound of bones crunching and flesh being torn resounding through the room as Ragavad, the giant skeleton's massive greatsword, hung in mid-air after striking its target, thick red blood oozing down the tip, along with a slight chip in the blade. Ragavad raised the sword high in the air and brought it crashing down onto Raven's head, who had already begun to leap out of the way. Raven threw himself to the ground and rolled away from the giant skeleton's attacks, grunting as he rushed to his feet, blood oozing from the gash along his chest, the black suit and leather armor now in tatters as his chest continued breathing heavily. Fuck you. With his powerful muscles bulging and filled with sweat and blood, Raven howled, a whirl of aura pouring from his pores before it thoroughly covered him in black energy enveloping his axe that sliced through the air towards the skeleton's femur. Raven's eyes flashed purple as the black shadows covered his neon eyes, his body became more powerful, and the axe head glowed with dark purple energy. The strike hit the skeleton in the leg, cutting through bone with a thunderous clang, almost severing the limb, causing Ragavad to recoil and leap backwards, the wail from the skeleton's mouth so loud, a shrill scream like the wail of the damned causing Raven to cover his ears, gritting his teeth with a grimaced look. Not yet, Raven muttered, shaking his head to clear the ringing in his ears. I'm not done yet. Ragavad lifted his severed leg and flung it at Raven, the massive bone smashing into his chest as he lifted the axe desperately to block the attack. The force of the impact threw Raven back, but he quickly rose to his feet and began sprinting towards the skeleton, his veins bulging as he began to berserk, trying to ignore the pain he felt. Ragavad reached for his weapon, but Raven leapt into the air and slammed his axe into the skeleton's chest, the blade biting deep into its ribcage and driving it as deep as possible. The attack pattern of this monster was strange, adapting to Raven's combat style each time he fought. There would be a deadly counter as the ribs snapped, forming sharp blade-like daggers that extended and pierced through the left arm of Raven, which he pushed forward to protect himself. The pain of the bones pushing through his flesh, as blood and meat began to ooze and burst from the acute wounds, yet he didn't relent. This monster didn't bleed nor show signs of pain as his neon eyes looked down deep into the blazing blue skull and its dark eyes. Raven spat into the flames, using his entire force to hold the skeleton in place, the fragile rib bones that impaled his arm trying to pull out, but stopped as his arm bent and pulled them tightly. "You ain't getting away. I am the son of the Raven Tempest." Raven's words were profound, slightly distorted as his face looked strange, slight black fluid like ink flowing around his flesh as he began almost to transform. His pupils became slits, a long black tail tore from his back as it wrapped around the arm of the skeleton holding its sword trying to counter-attack him. A swirling storm of black mana and aura poured from his heart and abdomen like a raging torrent of winds. No, instead a storm of aura collected around his axe, the jet-black mist with an amethyst core crackling and burning with a violent and powerful sensation, its power causing waves of dark corrosive energy, like a thick and deadly poison to ooze down the axe, slightly dulling and damaging the poor quality metal, dripping onto the bones of the skeleton, corroding and melting small holes into Ragavad's body, as his life reached 48%. "I cannot become like my mother." Raven's eyes glowed a violent purple with blue swirls as his hair began to float from the sheer magnitude of power he was emitting, small scales forming on his thighs like a serpent or dragon down to his feet, while his hands began dark, with claw replacing his nails, the purple aura bursting from his body like a tap left on full power, almost emptying his entire tank. Ragavad struggled, his strength higher than Raven's in theory. Still, the weight and being under Raven somehow caused the monstrous skeleton to struggle, the aura from his blade pushing down with an immense weight as the corrosive acid coming from the axe and Raven's blood and spit started to weaken its grasp on the sword. "So I will become something different. A monster, wild and uncontrolled." Gripping his sword, the muscles on his arms now bulging a full size larger than usual, like an oversized weightlifter, his axe held high with a storm, a hurricane of black energy now crackling swirling around rapidly, the sound causing a booming howl. Raven's eyes flashed blue. Ragavad, the slayer of wretched poachers, his voice was serene like the pair entered the eye of the storm, a vast vortex now around them as the very ground was starting to be torn apart from the total energy inside the body of Raven. His breathing was ragged, but his body stood tall. The moment Raven spoke the skeleton's name as if it could understand, the dark eye sockets began to burn with bright golden embers, its blue flaming skull looking upwards to Raven, a feeling of anger, disgrace, and unbreaking will losing from its aura, still struggling as the blades of the ribs pushed further, almost penetrating Raven's chest. "I am Raven, the chimera of Black Storm." Boom! A deafening sound like thunder rocked the room, causing Raven to stagger, his chest feeling like it was being crushed as his skin ripped, the ribs tearing through his torso as they dug deep into his lungs, ripping the muscles apart and pulling his organs free. But he withstood. His axe slammed down onto the blue flaming forehead of Ragavad, the crunch and blast of aura were so intense that Raven was blown back by the force of the attack, landing with a thud as the bones embedded in his body cracked and broke, but he had succeeded. Ragavad's forehead was crushed, split open like a cracked egg, the blue flames began to dwindle, the great sword clattering to the ground with a clang. Raven rose to his feet, his skin shredded, blood pouring from his chest as his muscles rippled and expanded with each heartbeat. Seeing that Ragavad was not dead, he grasped the damaged and warped axe, unwilling to let his burning muscles, fractured bones and torn skin stop his advance. "Damned filthy orc! For the first time, a voice echoed from the lips of Ragavad, his health now flashing red, less than 4% remaining as its face became a normal skull, cracks forming all down the front, teeth missing from the raging black wind. Come at me, you monster. Raven roared with a mighty bellow, his axe raised high as he pointed it towards the skeleton, ignoring his trembling arm, half the skin now peeled back, showing bloody, torn flesh. The pair began to clash with a thunderous crash of metal, sparks flying off the weapon as it clashed against the skeleton. The skeleton swung his sword with a powerful slash, Raven blocked it with his axe, the bones of his arms cracking as he fought for control of his body. Ragavad would splinter his bones on purpose, slicing the face and flesh of Raven while Raven would smash the bones of Ragavad with his idle left hand, the black mist weaker, but still swirling around his broken body. Warning: vitality critical. Death imminent. Shut up. Ha! Raven's foot smashed into the flank of Ragavad. At the same time, he took the strong arm of Ragavad through his chest, blood spurting as he faltered, before being slashed once again by the giant sword, sending his body hurling through the air, rolling on the gravel, grasping tightly at his mother's broken axe, now chipped, large cracks through the blade and shaft. Fuck. I can't see well. My chest hurts. Warning: entering critical state. Death imminent, please flee. Ha ha ha. An orc warrior never flees. Grr. Ragavad swung his sword in a wide arc, Raven leapt forward and avoided the swing, but as he did, the blade struck him in the side, breaking ribs which tore his right arm clean off, blood spraying everywhere as Raven was sent forward, his body now shooting towards the skeleton, his mother's axe flying across the large cave with a bang, the blade falling from the shaft, leaving Raven's arm in pieces. Ragavad's smile grew wider, blood pouring from the sword as he saw a raven approaching him, like a lamb to slaughter. Beove suddenly. Like his entire body, Ragavad's smile froze as Raven approached rapidly, only moving slowly, his arms moving slowly from the damage to his core earlier, now the effect of this strange feeling, the wild black aura coming from Raven, causing Ragavad's movement to all but stop. Raven's face, which should have shown despair, was smiling. He was laughing. Dread aura. Come, aid me with one last strike. Take everything I have, Ragavad. The black and purple aura, as if obeying its master, the legs of Raven now filled with a layer of purple scales, his feet like talons or hooves. His feet constantly reformed and changed as the aura of his body, the last flashes of his life force, began to swirl around his left fist, the bones protruding as he lunged forward, using the slash of Ragavad, losing his right arm, all for this moment as he threw a powerful left hook straight into the dome of the overconfident skeleton. Ragavad's eyes burned as the aura around him exploded. Ha 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 ha. Raven screamed with manic, deformed laughter as horns seemed to push through his forehead and temples, strange fleshy wings pushed and writhed around his back, almost tearing through his flesh, as his fist slammed into the skeleton, causing the entire room to shake. A second explosion of black storm erupted from the blow, as the blue flames shot into the sky in a massive pillar of beautiful blue flames as if to serve only to make Raven's victory much sweeter, his almond skin illuminated as the black winds and cracking purple lightning began to envelop and destroy the inside of Ragavad's skull before it exploded with a roaring bang. Your head is mine, Ragavad. Raven's voice was louder than thunder as he roared with triumph, the black wind howling in his ears as the purple lightning crackled around his arm, the bones of his hand becoming as hard as steel as they pushed outwards from his flesh like monstrous claws, or a bird's talon and sliced once more. Raven's powerful attack destroyed the small blue core where the flames came from within his skull, the blue fire sucked into Raven's body, as it caused his left hand to bubble and melt before the purple lightning aura absorbed it completely. I'm spent. Raven thought as the bones crumbled into a grey mist, the adrenaline from his battle fading while he fell to the ground, even the pain felt distant as if it were a dream. He could feel the ecstasy, for the first time in his life, Raven felt close to his mother, there was something deep inside him, a sense of pride that never showed through his daytime job, life with Phyllis was happiness, but at the cost of sealing this primitive desire that all orcs had, to do battle, to become stronger and feel this moment of joy on the precipice of death. There was no pain, he could no longer see, feel or hear, only the blinking light of the system that seemed to be malfunctioning as it flashed and showed static before Raven slammed against the ground. A brilliant light appeared and slowly began to heal his destroyed body as he rolled powerlessly in the dirt, landing beside the axe of his mother, now buried deep in the ground, with only the shaft sticking out and Ragavad's sword and girdle beside him. "Mother, I think I can move forward on this path from now on," Raven whispered as he fell into a light sleep, feeling the ticklish sensation of his blood and flesh being reconstructed, the acid-like blood melting the ground around him as he sank into a crater, feeling warm and comfortable as if his acid was a mother's embrace. The flashing screen of his wristband now flashed several details as the copious amount of experience entered his battered body. Killed Ragavad. Slayer of wretched poachers, gained 250 EXP, gained 500 credits, you have gained enough experience to level. Congratulations. You have reached level 10. Title gained. Self-proclaimed, Chimera of Black Storm, Chimera of Black Storm. Increases vitality and strength when near death by 30%. Lasts until death or recovery.